Life Audio.
Hello. Thank you for listening to Your Daily Bible Verse, the podcast that examines one verse each day to learn more about God and His will for our lives. I'm your host, Kyle Norman. After a brief message from one of our sponsors, we will continue with our series, Moses, From Fearful to Faithful, with a discussion of today's verse. Today's verse can be found in Exodus chapter 17, verses 11 and 12. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. One of the churches where I pastored underwent a huge renovation project. For years, the church had raised capital funds so that they could expand their entranceway, install an elevator, and create more office space. This was an ambitious project. And although most of the funds came through parish donations and fundraising, the church still secured a loan through the diocese. Now, after the renovation was complete, I had a meeting with the financial officer of the diocese. Now that this project is done, he asked, "What is your strategy to repay this loan?" "Well," I said, "we're praying a lot." He was not enthused. As a fiscally minded person, he wanted to hear a multi-step plan detailing success measures and target dates. Prayer just seemed far too incalculable, and dare I say, unrealistic. But is that true? Is prayer unrealistic? Is it a mistake to cover whatever we are facing with an attitude of prayer? Our verse today holds a great lesson for us. Moses prays over Israel's battle with the Amalekites because that was the most important and practical thing that he could do. Now, the story of Israel's battle with the Amalekites is popular for this description of Moses standing on top of a hill, holding the staff of God and his arms raised upwards. At first, this might be seen as another example of Moses wielding the staff of God. When Israel crossed the Red Sea, Moses lifted the staff and extended his hand over the sea. Last week we heard that Israel, when they needed water, Moses struck the rock with his staff and water gushed out. And so here Moses lifts the staff of God again, and he gains the victory over their enemies. But that's not exactly what happens. Israel's victory isn't gained by what Moses does externally, but by what he does internally. See, Moses takes the position of prayer. Today, we often picture prayer through a posture of kneeling. We lean forward, hands folded together, and eyes closed. But for Israel, prayer occurred standing, with eyes open, head tilted toward the heavens, and hands extended upwards. And this is the posture that Moses takes. Yes, he holds the staff of God in his hand, but his posture has more to do with Moses interceding on behalf of Israel's safety. Knowing that the tribe is outnumbered, Moses seeks divine help. He stands atop the hill and he implores the living God to act. Now, like Israel, there are times in our lives where we will find ourselves against a struggle, an opposition, or a battle of some kind. And yes, we will be required to act in some way. We might even develop multi-step plans, success measures, and target dates. But underneath it all, behind every action that we do, is to be the activity of prayer. We are to lift our hands to the one who journeys with us and who has promised to never leave us. Now, of course, Moses' prayer, it didn't mean the battle just disappeared. Moses didn't pray the battle away. We sometimes make an unfair distinction between prayer and action. We might think that saying that we will respond to something in prayer, well, that means we just don't need to do anything. But that's not the case. Israel still had to fight. They had to enter the battle. They couldn't just sit back and rest on their spiritual laurels. They had to enter the battle that was before them. But they could do that confidently, because they knew that they fought under the shadow of prayer. And that vision of Moses standing on the hilltop in prayer, it was a reminder that they didn't enter the battle alone. And victory would be achieved, not by their strategy or their might, but by God's sovereignty over them. Is there a situation that you are facing that demands your prayerfulness? What might it look like for you to take up a posture of prayer as you engage whatever is before you? Now, depending on your situation, that might seem daunting. And if so, that's okay. Perhaps you can invite someone to join you, to lift you up and support you in your prayers. Because after all, even Moses needed prayer warriors. When Moses couldn't raise his hand, when the posture of prayer seemed too difficult or too laborsome for him, there were others to help him. And they held him up physically and prayerfully. Aaron and Hur, they helped Moses pray when he couldn't pray by himself. Our life of faith is to be lived under the shadow of prayer. We are to pray over our situations, to pray for others, and to allow others to pray over us. The book of James reminds us that the prayers of the faithful are powerful and effective. Moses knew that. Israel experienced it. May you uncover that truth in your life today.